Hi, and welcome to Mr. Wilson Teaches Ukrainian Pysanky. Today we're going to be creating Ukrainian eggs. This is an art form that's been done for generations there. And we're going to be working with a couple tools. Most of these you probably wouldn't have lying around. There are ways of doing this more homemade version, but my suggestion would be to buy some of the equipment online or on Amazon so you can use the tools that were used in the traditional way to make it. So I have some examples, and I'll show you close up. These were made by one of our staff members here, Mary Connor, who is really, really great at making these. So I'm going to show a close up so you can get a better look at what they look like. Some of the tools you're going to need are the egg dye. So I'm using a batch of batik egg dyes. We'll cut to a different scene where I show you exactly how to mix up those dyes so that they work for it. You're going to need a candle or some sort of flame source. You're going to need some beeswax. This specific beeswax is 100% natural. It has also been dyed so that it's easier to see when you draw on top of your egg. You're going to need a kiska. This is a tool that holds in the wax and allows you to draw with it as it funnels through the brass end here. And I also have an egg blower. The egg blower is not necessary. When you cut to the scene you can see how it's used, but you can also use a pin if you'd rather do a double hole. This one just happens to be one. And then of course you need your egg. So we're going to take you through all the steps. We're going to do a really basic design. You will be able to see some of the more elaborate ones in the examples, but we're going to keep it basic, just showing you the different dyes and how it works. And best of luck. Let us know how it goes. So here's the close-up of the eggs made by Mary Connor. I said I would show earlier. So I guess while I show you these, I'll give you an explanation about the history of these eggs. So, I mean, simply put, these are Ukrainian eggs. The term Pysanka comes from the Ukrainian verb meaning to write. So the egg actually gets the name because you're using the kiska and you're writing onto the eggs. So that is why they are called this. It's a wax resist method. It's really similar to batik if you've done any of that wax work. So that's where the word itself comes from. But it's been around since pre-Christian times. The eggs are used to symbolize the rebirth of the earth, the people's wish for health, fertility, love, and wealth. Now there's sort of the rebirth of man. There's different symbols that you can use while you do these designs, and each of them have their own meaning, as well as the colors. So as you go through these designs, that's something to think about and show. So these are some of the more traditional designs. And usually if you watch any of these other videos on YouTube, done by some of the professionals, you'll see this start with the ring, just like this one. So we're really grateful she shared these with us so we could show you all the different kinds. And we'll show you the dyeing as well to show you how to get each of these colors like this, because that's usually people's first question is, how do you get all those colors on that little surface? And we'll go through that together. Okay, so we're here in the Home and Careers room. I'm going to be mixing up the dyes for you. So I've already taken those dyes out of the package. In here, these mason jars, these are 12-ounce jars, so you need 8 ounces of water, so this is going to fit that and leave room for the egg. I've already put the dye in there, I've labeled them, and I put plastic tape on those to protect the label. So these are going to have to kept at room temperature. If you have them as boiling water, when you dip the egg in, the wax will automatically come off because of the heat, so you have to pre-make these. So I'm making them now so they have time to cool down. The dye I've already put inside. Make sure you don't inhale this when you're putting the dye in, as some of the chemicals are not the best for the respiratory system. So you're going to start with the dye. This calls for 1 tablespoon of vinegar. So the vinegar will help hold the color. So the stronger the vinegar, or the more vinegar you have, the more it's going to hold in the faster, if you know that from regular Easter egg dyeing. So actually I'll bring the camera closer and show you all the mixing over here, okay? Okay, so here's our vinegar. This is white distilled vinegar. I use distilled just usually when I'm doing anything artistic wise. There's not anything added in there. It just makes it easier because you know exactly what you're getting. So that's the first thing you're going to put in with the dye. You're then going to add 8 ounces or 1 cup of boiling water. So that's the measurements that you use, and then you're just going to mix it up. And then you have to let this, like I said, go back down to room temperature. And this should be just about the right amount for an egg to fit in, but I might have to dump some out depending on how that floats in there. And then I'm going to mix it up good so that all of that gets mixed around. And there's one dye down. So we're going to go through and mix up a bunch of different colors. You can use a different type of dye, just use regular food coloring. This is batik dye, it's a little stronger, but you can use just regular food coloring with 2 tablespoons of vinegar, again 8 ounces of boiling hot water. Mix that together and let it come down to room temperature. The colors won't be as vibrant and strong, but it will have the same effect. Okay, so the next step is preparing the egg so that it can be dyed. Typically you want to wait at least 1 day for this to dry out and make sure that all the goo is pretty much left. So we're going to be blowing out the egg yolk and the egg white. This is a tool that they sell online. It is designed so that you only have to make 1 hole. So this area is used to puncture the hole. You blow into this end and it shoots the air up and basically shoots everything out. It is possible to do this at home without the tool. To do that, you take a sewing needle and you make a hole on the top and the bottom, and then just with the pressure of blowing it, it'll shoot out the other side. So you can do this at home without this tool. This one just happens to be easier. So you're going to take the tool or needle, whatever you have. On the bottom, you're going to create the hole. So you press down, and I usually make the hole a little bigger. Once you get good at this, you can just stick with the tiny hole that it came with. And I also usually try to break up some of the yolk in there, shake it around. So I keep poking until I get some yellow onto it. And that means that you've punctured the yolk, so it's going to come out a lot easier. Okay, so to blow it out, you're going to insert the tool into the hole, and turn it upside down, and then you're going to create air pressure here. And as you can see, the egg white is going to be the first thing to come out. When you do this, you have to take breaks. You don't want to end up passing out because you're losing all your air. So just a little bit at a time. If you create a back and forth motion as you do it, it does help it come out a little faster too. All right, now you can see that the yolk is starting to come out. So I'm just going to finish this off, and then we're going to set it down to dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll be ready to start the designing. Okay, we're going to start with the next step, which is loading our kiska. So I've got my egg here. I also have the kiska and the wax. So by heating this up, this should be hot enough to melt the wax, and load some in here. Now honestly, this is just sort of a trial and error as you go. Alright, so I've loaded my kiska with the wax here. So just by holding the kiska right over the flame, you can heat this up and start to draw onto your egg. So this works in a reductive manner, so you have to draw on whatever you want to stay that color. That's what you're going to start with. So I'm starting with a circle all the way around. And then that will stay white because it is now protected by the wax. There's lots of different symbols when you do this as well, so you can look up what some of these mean. So certain lines talk about the thread of life. I'll throw in some pine needles there, so those are for health and stamina. Spirals are for immortality, all different sort of stuff. So as I go through, I'll add some of these in. One of the traditional shapes here, starting by going around this everlasting life, so going through with a circle, which is the everlasting shape, and connecting all these lines through. That's what I'm going to be starting with. And that's going to be what's in white. And they do make different size kiskas as well, so if you wanted to create one with thicker lines, that is possible. failed to mention there too, when I started this egg, I also made sure it was clean. I used a little bit of vinegar as well with the water and soap. Get rid of all the oil from my fingers. And as you do this, it is a lot harder than you would expect. You'll make a straight line on this curved surface. It's so slippery. So with experience, you'll get better at this. Alright, so I'm going to turn some of these into the pine needle shape. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the camera. I have to do zoom in a little later. This one. So this one I'm going to add a ladder. A ladder is for prosperity. So as you can imagine, you can spend hours and hours making these designs and making it perfect. As I go through this, I'm sort of rushing and not getting exactly the lines I want, but for the sake of the video, it'll work. Something else to mention too is the colors have meaning in Ukrainian culture as well. So orange is for strength and warmth, red is for love and passion, purple is for sorrow, black is the eternal or protection from evil, green is rebirth and prosperity, white is purity, pink is success, blue is health and loyalty, and yellow is light and happiness. So a lot of people, when they make these, they'll think about those and try and create their rebirth egg or their Ukrainian egg so that it has all the things they're wishing for or hoping for, especially if it's a present for someone else. So they'll use those meanings that are traditional to the Ukrainian culture. Alright, so I'll try to bring this a little closer to the camera. Let's see if it'll focus in on there. So I've got the pine needle design going around those everlasting circles, and then I also have this ladder design as well. You can see the hole as well that popped out. So that also has to be sealed up. So because we don't want this to soak up with our dye in water and sink the egg, you have to seal that hole, which is easier said than done. Let's get some more on here. It might not be the prettiest look, but it's necessary to seal that if you plan on tying the egg. So I just sealed it there on the bottom. And these holes are larger. These are, my students will be using these. Normally you'd make a much smaller hole when it look as obvious. And when we display them, that's going to be the base anyways, so I'm not too worried about the aesthetics of it. If it's for my own personal work or if professional being sold, then that is something to be concerned with. Okay, so I'm gonna cut through and bring this over to the first dip, and we will see how that goes. Okay, so we have our first layer of wax put on by our Kiska, and we are now going to be putting it into the food colored or batik dyed dye. This is yellow, so it's important to know every color in order must go lightest to darkest. So you want to be able to cover layer after layer. There are different mixing effects and things you can get, but if it's your first time, keep it simple, just go light to dark. So I'm going to be starting with the yellow, and it will float because this egg is hollow, so you just have to push it down. So if you weight this, you can hold it or have it hold itself. So I'm just going to hold it there. These can range from anywhere from like 10 seconds to 10 minutes. It really doesn't make a difference. What you want to do is just a matter of how dark you want that color to be. So the longer you hold it in there, the more color it'll take on. So this is starting to pick up the color just like a regular Easter egg would. And if you hear any air bubbles, that means that that hole in the bottom is sucking in air. So that's something you want to look for and listen for. Because if you're getting any of those, then you're going to have a full egg. And after this has picked up the color, you're going to then take it out, dry it off. So I'm just doing a quick dip just to get the color. I'll be cleaning this off, and then we'll move on to our next color right after. Okay, in this next round of coloring, what is already hidden with wax, that's going to stay white. Now whatever we want to stay yellow, we're then going to have to start covering up. So this is what I mean by that reduction. So anything that is going to stay yellow is now going to get colored in. I'm going to start with a floral design. I'm just going to keep working on this. I'll probably cut you closer too when this is done, so you don't have to watch me work this whole time. But adding these designs in wherever you want to stay that yellow color is the next step. Okay, that's the finished design, and now I'm going to go in. So those floral areas, the line there, as well as these circles, will be the yellow ones. So I'm going to be dipping this in. I think I picked out orange over here. I'm going to be putting in the orange next. Now remember, as you do this, you're not really going to be able to see how it's turning out color-wise because it's going to be constantly covered up with the next color. So until you get the final wax off, you're really not sure how it's going to work. So you sort of just have to trust the process that it goes through each of the different color phases. And then depending on how many colors you're willing to put in, that's how many you can do. I'm just doing a 3-tone. Oh, I got an air bubble here. So that means there's a leak in this top area. I'm just going to hold it down there so I can hopefully avoid fixing it until the next time I get my hands on the Kiska. And again, the longer you hold it in, the more colors you're going to get. Alright, so I'm going to hold this up close to camera. Hopefully you can see it. So there's yellow behind that wax on the floral area. So I'm not sure if that shows up great in film. So the next part I want to stay orange is actually the whole petal of the flower design I did. So this is a technique where you can make a whole solid color, and it's basically just coloring in. So by coloring all this in, I'm going to create this orange floral, and I'm picking black from my last color, so it'll really make all of these pop out. And a lot of people, when they do this, they strive for perfection. And that's something that I struggle with, because I think one of the nice things about making something by hand is there are imperfections. You can see that human element to it. So as you're doing this, I wouldn't be too stressed about the idea that maybe not everything is coming out perfectly. Alright, now we're putting it in our last color, which is the black. Now normally I would leave this in for a much longer time so it gets a really deep dark black, but for sake of the time of the video, we're just going to do a quick soak. Looks like that hole still isn't fixed. Alright, so on the black you can really see those colors come through. All of the whites. The orange and yellow are really popping out. You can take a candle and actually get rid of all that wax. Wipe it right off and see all the vibrant colors. So I'm just going to do this one side for you. So I take the egg, just wipe off the light layers of wax. I'm going to unveil the colors for you. Alright, so there's our close-up, the finished little demo egg. So you can see the white, the orange, the yellow, all those colors are appearing in that reductive manner. So it's going from that etchy beeswax look, and there's your finished one. And again, the colors can be so vibrant, so pretty if you just leave them in there, let them soak up and really take on those colors. So good luck. Let us know how it goes and enjoy.